Budget and Appropriations Order at 6:38. We do have a couple of guests with us today. I did ask our veterans agent to come down and speak a little bit about the repairs to the veterans van, as well as the incredible opportunity that Attleboro will have this fall to pay homage to those men and women who served in Vietnam, as the moving Vietnam Wall will be in Attleboro. So without further ado, Ken, if you'd like to come to the podium, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Delisio. I appreciate it.
Pleasure to have you, as always. Why don't we start with the van? Just
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the van, what happened, where we're at, and then we can go into the wall.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
So a little bit of background on the van for those who know or don't know, perhaps. We've had the ability to transport veterans from their homes here in Attleboro to their VA medical appointments, and it's a concierge level service. We've got a bunch of really great volunteers that make that program happen, but none of it would have happened but for the tremendous fundraising efforts of the Attleboro Elks. I know Councilor Blair, you were actually instrumental in that 10 years ago as well, and I thank you for that. The city of Attleboro is unique in the fact that we have a 7-passenger wheelchair accessible van to get veterans to and from those VA medical appointments. In other communities, they'll rely on local bus services. Maybe the DAV will come in and help out, and this service is really instrumental in making sure that our veterans get the care at their VA facilities that they've earned and deserve. So we go to the Providence VA 3 days a week because it's closest as the crow flies, and we also fall within the catchment area for the Providence VA Medical Center, but veterans have the opportunity to use whichever medical facility they'd like to. So I often run into situations where veterans will prefer to go to Brockton or prefer to be seen at their doctors at West Roxbury and at the Jamaica Plain facilities in Boston. So we facilitate that by going 1 day a week to each of those. So we've gotten a lot of mileage out of the van, and in 2017 the Elks stepped up to the plate again and donated a 4-door sedan for us, a brand new Subaru Legacy. So that was really awesome. The issue with the van tonight, we're asking for a little bit of help for replacing 2 of the tires that we had go out on us. And the situation was that one of our volunteer van drivers took 2 veterans that day down to the Providence VA, and we were around for the doctor's appointments to be done. We're about to hop in the van and go back home, and one of the tires was really low. Not flat like it was on the rim, but low enough to where if you took it back on the highway, that tire would have shredded out and it would have been a safety concern. So we ended up being able to tow the van back. The good folks over at our Department of Public Works patched it up. Everything was good for a couple weeks, and then we ran into the exact same issue again. And so I says, guys, fortunately that wasn't stuck at the VA that time. We didn't need to tow it back, but it was just in the parking lot. And I said, well, fortunately we have the second vehicle, so go ahead and take that. But I called the DPW in, and they took a look at the tire, and they said, yeah, we really do need to replace this one. So it was, they tried a preventative maintenance to save the city money first, and then they really just came down to it needs 2 tires. So we're asking for $200 to be able to facilitate that.
Excellent. Thank you for that explanation. I just figured while I had you here, I might as well allow you to talk about that. And I drive that street in Brockton quite often. Yeah. Because the registry's there. It's always on construction potholes, so I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier. So, all right, terrific. What I'll do now is I'll just entertain the motion. We'll go through this motion first. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $281.57 from account 112410000-578300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 154310000-524230 veterans vehicle maintenance regarding the need for funds to replace 2 tires on the veterans van.
Second.
Thank you, Chad. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. I'm going to read the next motion, and then we'll turn right back over to Ken. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $6,000 from account 1000-359000 undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account 1100543-577209 continuing appropriation veterans patriotic events regarding the needs for funds to bring the Vietnam Veterans Moving Wall to Attleboro.
Second.
Thank you, Shad. I have no comments, but we'll turn it over to our Veterans Agent.
Thank you again. I appreciate that. So this is really an extraordinary opportunity that we have to serve as the host community for the Moving Wall, is what it's called. It's a half-size replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, which is in D.C. It's the black granite wall with 58,318 names for those who were killed in action or went missing during the Vietnam War. The last time that our immediate community has had the opportunity to serve as the host community for the Moving Wall was in 1999 when it came to North Attleboro. It was sited at the high school there at the time. They tried to bring it back a few years later. I want to say it was 5 years later, but I don't have all of the details because that was before my time. I was actually just joining the Air Force around that time. But it didn't work out for whatever reason, and the overall sentiment among the veterans that I've spoken to was just too soon. Since that time, I have had the former veterans agent who served in North Attleboro. His name is Jim Bound. He's very active in the American Legion post just down the street here. He pops in on me to make sure I'm still taking good care of our veterans and making sure that we're doing the good work that we're supposed to in that office. And he said, one of the greatest events that I ever had the opportunity to help out with was bringing the Moving Wall to North Attleboro. It was so impactful, and it was such a powerful event for the veterans who served in Vietnam and the families of those veterans who didn't come home from Vietnam and have never had the opportunity to visit their memorial in Washington, D.C. The fact that these memorials, there's more than one Vietnam Wall that sort of travels the country, and there's two that have the designation the Moving Wall because they belong to the same nonprofit. And the fact that these travel the country and have the opportunity to come to the community and really give our Vietnam veterans the opportunity for us to say, welcome home, thank you for your service. And it really is sort of, every time I think about that, I'm thankful to have been able to serve when I did. Because when I deployed to Iraq and when I deployed to Afghanistan, both times I was welcomed home as a hero. And I've heard anecdotes of Vietnam veterans who didn't want to serve in Vietnam, first and foremost. There was a draft in place at the time, and didn't agree with the war that was being fought, but they did their duty. They were called to service, and they served honorably. And when they came home, after having been there for a year or more, they get off of the C-130, and a captain would roll up on the flight line and say, grab your bags, you're about to double time it because there's a bunch of protesters at the gate, and word has it they've got handguns. And for Vietnam veterans to have a reception like that is shameful. And I think that as many opportunities as we have to say thank you for your service, and by the way, welcome home, I think we should absolutely take advantage of it.
100%. And, you hear stories of how there are veterans who wouldn't put their dress uniform on, some not until the 80s and even 90s, given the way they were treated when they came home. It's always good to have you come down and speak. Your passion, your eloquence, it's always welcome. So I would like to open it up to some questions. I just want to make sure that the dates are September 26th through the 30th, correct?
That is correct. We've got that reserved. They've got a placeholder for us on the website. You can actually already see Attleboro as the placeholder for their schedule on the movingwall.org. That's the website for their nonprofit. And a key point of clarification there is we don't have a contract to have reserved that date with them just yet, which is part of the reason that I'm here. It's almost circular in a sense. It's difficult to fundraise in earnest to be able to pay to bring the wall here because there's logistics and they bring it in on a flatbed truck and there's costs associated with that. And it's tough to ask for donations and do any sort of fundraising without the contract signed.
Sure.
And our city auditor, Deb Gould, says, I can't sign a contract unless I've got money from the city council. And how am I supposed to get money from the city council unless we've got an event secured? So it's really sort of I'm here asking for what I view as seed money because I've already actually got money that the city auditor has agreed that were donation funds and could be used to support this event, at least enough to secure the deposit that we need. And the remaining balance, we'll seek to do the fundraising work to make sure that we can do a really wonderful event.
Excellent. And this is something that I just feel we need to bring to the city. city. It's even when I visit DC, it's always a very somber part of the visit, going to the Vietnam Wall. Now the location is going to be Highland.
So we're hoping that the Highland Country Club will be the venue.
Okay.
And a lot of thought was put into that. I'm not. Just so we're clear, none of that is set in stone.
Right.
And so if there are comments to the contrary, a lot of folks have talked about Capron Park prior to tonight. And I am personally really a fan of bringing it to the Highland Country Club, or I don't know if the current status is that it's called Highland Park yet, but I think that that's a proposal if it's not set in stone yet. The reason that I prefer it to be there is one of the key elements of the moving wall and the Vietnam Wall in D.C. is the solemnity and the power of the memorial. And every year when we have our Memorial Day ceremonies, often they're at the Veterans Memorial Triangle at Capron Park, where we've got a series of memorials. We've got the beautiful Civil War Memorial, and there's the memorials from that period of time all the way up through the 9/11 era. And so it's a really fitting location to have our Memorial Day ceremony and veterans ceremonies in general. But every year we'll have traffic that continues to pass by, and there's always a motorcycle or two that rips by. And I personally think that loud pipes save lives, but it's not fitting for a ceremonial and the solemnity that the Vietnam Wall commands and the respect that it deserves, frankly. And I think that the Highland Country Club allows us to remove ourselves far enough away from the traffic and nearby streets and such that it's a nice big open space. And the kind of thing that set it out for me is the mayor and I, during those initial discussions about where we're going to put the wall, we did a field visit to the Highland Country Club. And if you were to park at the upper parking lot, and we were to site the wall at that first open green space right at the base of that, you don't see the wall as you approach and as you park. And as you get out of your car and you go to take the ramp down to that first green open space, the wall will literally explode into view, and it'll really just sort of hit you. This is here, this is now, let's experience this. And that's, I think, the effect that we're going for with that.
Council Blair.
When you say the first green space, I never hit that first green space from the first tee, by the way. Do you mean the first fairway? Is the clubhouse is like here, and then the first hole is out this way?
If you were to exit the clubhouse, you would see two greens immediately on your left and on your right. And I'm talking about the one that's closest to the parking lot and the ramp that goes down on the right-hand side.
That'd be the second hole.
Okay, then that would be the second hole.
That's where you plan on?
That's my vision for it. Yes, sir.
Have you been in contact with the park department down there as far as making that presentable? Right now, it looks like a hayfield.
I have spoken with Derek Corsi about the need for that, and he has assured me that all of that is very possible throughout the year, as long as we know that the event is going to happen and that we secure the date in the contract. He will make sure that we put the work into making that place presentable. That's his words.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Council Copus.
Thank you so much for setting all of this up. And just to reiterate, I too, when I came back from Iraq and Afghanistan, there were flags draped on the streets and huge celebrations, both in Rehoboth and when I came back in Reading. It was such a warm welcoming and a hero's welcome, and so to have this opportunity to give back is great. I also want to thank you or thank some of the other people in the committee that you set up, Mrs. DeSimone and Mrs. Culhane and Mr. Bound and our very own Julie Hall will be helping out with this. So that's a great committee, and I just want to thank you and whatever you need.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anyone else?
I just was curious if you plan to use the clubhouse in any way.
So that's a really great question, Councilor Waterman. The hesitation that you hear in my voice is that I'm not sure that we can make the clubhouse as presentable as we can the green space. And I think that'll be an ongoing discussion as to what we can pull off and what we cannot. So I don't want to make any promises to that at this time. I know that the mayor has indicated that that could be a possibility, but really my vision for that might just be here's some restrooms if you need to use them. And other than that, we're not really going to, I don't think that I should ask for the level of work that the country club would need in order to make it presentable before that date. I think that there's a lot more that goes into that than I'm aware of, and that I would be willing to really push for, frankly.
Well, I wanted to thank you myself. I lived through that period, and the country was just torn in pieces. Some of us in this room lived in that period. And I think now, I think it'll be very different. I think there'll be a real coming together around this event. So thank you.
That's my hope. Thank you.
Yes.
Ken, that's really all we have. One thing I would ask is if you wouldn't mind maybe throughout, even during your budget presentation and times throughout the summer, if you could just keep us updated. Love to have you back as that time gets closer and just talk a little bit more about it.
I'll be more than happy to.
Cool.
That'd be great.
And anything else you need from us, let us know. And thank you for spearheading this and really bringing this amazing piece of history to our city.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time tonight.
Thank you. That being said, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to some of the other motions. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to authorize the school department to pay fiscal year 2018 school bills totaling $228.92 as identified in Mr. Furtado's communication from the meeting of March 5th, 2019.
Second.
Thank you, Todd. This, and we all received this in our backup, this is more or less just to pay bills that came in, English as a second language courses. So, any other questions, thoughts, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes, thank you. Okay, I'm going to save that for Steve. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $228 from account 1124100-578300, citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 1175100-513000, planning overtime regarding the need for additional funds for overtime for the remainder of fiscal year 2019.
Second.
Thank you, Todd. Again, this is for all the work, and I believe it's Stephanie. Let me check my notes. It's the planning board administrator and the clerk who oftentimes have to stay for the meetings. Oftentimes, as we all know, we've been to planning board meetings, zoning board of appeal meetings, they can go late. So this is just to ensure that they're compensated justly. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
None.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $24,310 from account 1000-35900, undesignated fund balance, free cash, general government, to account 1630100-530112, recreation demolition services, regarding the need for funds to demolish the William H. Liddell Memorial Bathhouse. Thank you. Pool and bathhouse, rather.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, Dennis Walsh, the Director of Recreation, does a really fantastic job of keeping us updated. It gets us his director's report every month. And this was illustrated, and this was drawn attention to in the February 15th. And I'm just going to read right from the communication because far be it from me to put words into Dennis's mouth. So, the pool is now listing over 9 inches to one side. The listing cannot be remedied and does not allow the filtration system to properly circulate the water, thereby preventing us from meeting state and federal filtration standards. Originally financed and built by a group of South Attleboro residents in the early 60s, Liddell Pool has served residents of Attleboro for almost 60 years. So it's with much sadness that he forwarded the request for an appropriation for the demolition of the pool and bathhouse. Once the concrete walls and floor of the pool have been removed, the area will be backfilled to ground level. This request includes a 10% contingency. So this is something that needs to be done. Councilor Conti.
So I took a tour there last year for the capital improvements and city development tour. That pool is built to withstand a nuclear attack, and I pity the machinery that has to rip it apart.
Yeah.
It's the boys and women who were together building that pool in 1960 were building it to last, and they did. The pool house next to it, though, is a much different story. It was adequate in 1960 during the design when it was built, but the world has changed tremendously since 1960. And our morals and our standards in cleanliness and acceptable outdoor facilities has dramatically changed. And these are vintage 1960 showers and changing rooms. Nowhere near appropriate for today. So the best thing is, and we discussed this last year, is to get rid of it, start clean, and the next step is to come up with a design for that slope on how we can get access from the Pine Street area down into a pool area with the handicapped and all the current ADA requirements for a new facility that's down the road. So South Attleboro is going to be without a pool for a few years, but I'm hoping that the city will see a way of bringing that pool back into full function over time, and that concludes my comments.
Well, thank you for those comments. I think you're spot on, and the fact that you're bringing out that this was in the capital improvements plan. We've talked about it. We've heard Dennis talk about it. He let us know about it in February. Should really be no surprise to anyone. And one thing that we've known with Dennis is when Dennis comes to us with something like this, it's usually after he's exhausted every option. Him and his board of directors do an amazing job across the city, which I don't know we can ever say thank you enough for the job they do, because there's so much of it they don't take credit for. So it's a big thank you from me to everyone out there on the Rec Commission. Sarah.
So I'd just like to ditto your comments and Councilor Conte's comments about the pool. It is my ward. I'm concerned that they will be without a pool, or what they might do to reconstruct something to allow for activities for the kids in that area. So I just hope my fellow councilors, when it comes up, that there's a long, hard discussion about what's going on, because I do believe that South Attleboro, anyway, south of the Route 1A area, has lost out on a lot of different projects and things that have been taken from them, one being the library down in that area at one time. So it has to be done. The laws make it such that we have to do that, but I would ask that when the time comes that we really give some thought to the residents and their families down there. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and I think it's important. I'll get you in 17 seconds. You can count. It won't be that long. I think that Council Conti brings up a really good point when we talked about the standards. The standards today are different than they were 5 years ago, let alone almost 60 years ago. And I think, Sarah, you're right. I think that we have to continue to look, and I'm sure that it's not that far off anybody's radar. So thank you, Councilor.
So, Councilor Reynolds, I can assure you and promise you that if I return to this office as an at-large councilor, that you'll have my full support in South Attleboro for a new pool, because I am very mindful of the fact that your district contributes a substantial portion to the tax base to the city of Taunton. It's an irregularly overabundant support of taxes from your district. And by that I mean your district contributes more to the revenues of the city than any other district in the city. And I think for that there should be a return of the city to the residents in that area. And that support should be in the services. As you know, I was instrumental in the building of that pavilion because I believe that park is a very important part of South Attleboro. So the bottom line is that while we are destructing the pool, and I'm supporting the destructing the pool, I want you to know that, and you and your supporters and your constituents, that I will support you, and I'll be behind you 100% when it comes time to find the capital to rebuild that pool, because I think it's a very important part of South Attleboro and that Veterans Memorial Pavilion area.
Thank you.
And that concludes my comments.
Well said. Thank you. All right. So let's see, I'm going to call for a vote. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, folks, I have one last motion. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $209.54 from account 1124100-578300, citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 1161100-513000, clerk overtime, regarding the needs for funds to pay a water department employee to work during the rabies clinic at the water department.
Second.
Thank you, Todd. I asked City Clerk to come on and talk a little bit about this. I think it's pretty straightforward, but there could be some concern where it's a water department employee paid out of the clerk's budget. So, Steve, thanks for coming.
Councilors, good evening. This is just simply a housekeeping matter. For probably the last 30 years, we've had the rabies clinics in Attleboro, maybe more. Peter might even know how many years they had them for. And the water department employee always works, opens up the building, closes up the building, cleans up the whole 9 yards. And it's about 5 hours, 5.5 hours. It's always been paid out of the water department. It's never been paid out of the clerk's office. So this year it's an issue that it's paid out of the water department and not the clerk's office. So this is simply a transfer to pay for his 5.5 hours of overtime so that he can be there that day. And it's that simple. It's just, it will be in the budget next year, so.
Excellent. Any questions for our clerk, Mr. Conti?
So it makes sense to me. I mean, you're receiving all the revenues from dog licensing. It makes sense that you would be paying for the...
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's just been the way it's always been, so.
Okay, that concludes my
Well, that's
comments.
encouraging, because I think too often in government, it's never been that way, doesn't mean it can't be. So, thank you, and thank you for your willingness to come down and speak on this side of
Thank
the
you.
issue. All right. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I would seek to adjourn at 7:04.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned to 7:04. Thank you. And thank you for your patience. I know we had some technical stuff.
like to call this meeting of the Municipal Council to order at 7:10 p.m. Please stand and join me in a salute to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are no joint public hearings this evening, but there are several public hearings, and Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice of the first continued public hearing?
I certainly will. The first is a continued public hearing relative to amending sections of Chapter 10 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, Chapter 10, Motor Vehicles and Parking, as it pertains to Beagle Club Road.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition? Anyone in opposition? Anyone here neither for nor against would like to speak at this time? Seeing none?
President Cooper, I do have a communication from the Traffic Study Commission that they requested be read before the closing of the public hearing.
Perfect.
Thank you. So on Wednesday, March 13th, this is addressed to President Cooper and the honorable members of the Municipal Council. On Wednesday, March 13th, 2019, the Traffic Study Commission held a special meeting to consider a number of matters. One of the products of this meeting was the subject of the communication, a statement regarding our Beagle Club Road recommendation. It follows subsequently in this communication. The development of this subject statement was restricted to the voting members in attendance. In particular, Councilor Parika recused herself and was not present for any portion of its creation. Statement regarding our Beagle Club Road recommendation. As members of the Traffic Study Commission, we were taken back by Mayor Paul Hero's remarks via email in correspondence to a question asked of him by George Rhodes of the Sun Chronicle concerning the Traffic Study Commission's recommendation on the Beagle Club Road issue. These remarks were also forwarded to the members of the Municipal Council and the City Clerk. The Traffic Study Commission has been reviewing the problem associated with Beagle Club Road for many years. The problem presented to us was not of a traffic nature, but the behavioral nature of some who parked on Beagle Club Road to access the reservoir area. Even though not a true traffic or parking concern, we reviewed the situation to see what could be done to alleviate the behavioral issues. The mayor's comments that we did not meet or speak with the residents of Beagle Club Road or consider the testimony before the Municipal Council on his proposal were inaccurate. Councilor Heather Parika has spoken on many occasions to the residents and passed on to our commission their comments and their concerns. We've been kept up to date with the residents' concerns and wishes for many years now, not just the past few months. Likewise, we were kept informed of the testimony before the Municipal Council concerning the mayor's proposal. The Traffic Study Commission listened to and considers the desires of the residents regarding any particular item put before us. However, the Traffic Study Commission is not obligated to support any particular proposal that is put before us which the residents of an area or the city government may want implemented. In making a recommendation concerning any item put before us, we as a commission must recommend what we consider to be in the best interests of the city as a whole. There have been various proposals and discussions brought forward to us by the Municipal Council regarding the Beagle Club Road issue. The most recent ones being discussed by this commission were the mayor's current proposal and the option of keeping the ordinance that is in place now prohibiting seasonal parking. We as a commission have reviewed all proposals and have monitored the various actions, including the seasonal parking ordinance restriction. Furthermore, we as a commission felt that this seasonal parking ordinance has worked to eliminate the behavioral problems associated with parking on Beagle Club Road. This results in equal impact to the residents of the city as a whole and a minimal impact on the city's resources. This is why we recommended keeping in place the current ordinance instead of other proposals brought forward. Additionally, we as a commission felt that any, quote, parking sticker, end quote, or similar proposal to regulate which Attleboro residents may or may not park on a city street was a legislative issue, not a traffic parking matter. This latter point was part of our recommendation to the Municipal Council. Also in the past, the Traffic Study Commission as a whole has never supported any type of resident-only parking any place in the city. As a whole, we have felt that all roads in the city of Attleboro should not only be available to park on and be used by the residents of any particular road, but to all. If not available to all, then no one should be allowed to park on such street. If a residents-only or citizens-only parking restriction is deemed beneficial by the Municipal Council for certain areas of the city, then they, as the legislative branch of the city, could enact such an ordinance. However, such a restriction should be implemented only for true traffic concerns. Respectfully submitted, the members of the Traffic Study Commission.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, at this time, do you want to see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. I am going to close that public hearing and Mr. Withers, would you kindly move on to the reading of the next
I will.
new public hearing?
Second public hearing is relative to the following loan order for water main work on Reed Street. Order that $2,700,000 is appropriated for the permitting, bidding, construction oversight, and construction costs associated with the replacement of approximately 8,800 linear feet of water mains, including the road restoration on Reed Street, Attleboro, Massachusetts, collectively the project, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $2,700,000 under Chapter 29C of the general laws and/or Section 8, subsection 5 of Chapter 44 of the general laws, or any other enabling authority. That the mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this order in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 8, subsection 5 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone here neither for nor against? Anyone neither for nor against? Councilor Conti, do you see any?
Mr. President, I'd like to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Can you, I know what your plan is, but nobody else does, so do you mind just sharing what your plan is to bring, it's sort of unusual for the department head not to appear before the council when they're asking us for $3 million. So if you could explain what your plan is, I think that would be appreciative to the council and the public.
On this measure and the next measure, both of the department heads at the committee meeting in the next meeting, next week, to talk about this and depending on what else happens, maybe more.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Vice President
So are you keeping the public hearing open or not?
So I think we would,
We can close it because the department heads can appear in front of my committee
Yes, they
at
can.
my
Right.
command.
they can. Yeah.
And that's the plan.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Council Blair?
I didn't quite get Mr. Conti's comment, excuse me. Did you say she's coming before you to address this situation
Before my committee, next week.
next week? So you're going to leave it open?
No, I'm going to close it, and I'm, as the chairman of the committee,
Yeah.
I can bring anyone to any committee meeting
I
at any time.
understand that. I've been here longer than you have. I understand
I
that
think I know what I'm doing.
sometimes. But you're gonna bring it next week, and we're gonna bring this forward
Yes,
without having the availability to learn what that project is?
you're going to learn next week during the committee meeting, and tonight we're going to close the public hearing.
You're gonna close it next week.
We're going to close the public hearing tonight.
Yeah,
So Council Jackson?
thank you very much. The whole point of the public hearing is for the department heads to come and speak before the public,
Yeah.
to let the public know what's going on. And if you close it, there's no more discussion on it, whether it's in your committee or not. My understanding is that's the way I just believe it, and I'm just saying that, Council Conti. But a public hearing, that's the whole point, because you're going to speak in favor, against. So normally, and it's been that way forever and ever and ever, the department head comes before the public hearing and speaks and justifies why this is needed, and then the rest of the public can say, hey, this is why I don't want it. But if we close the public hearing, then nobody can come and talk against what they're saying. So that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm lost with that one, Council Conti, and so I wish you would explain that to me, please, how that works. Because I don't understand it that way in all these years.
So the order for the bond has been public information since February. I don't think I have the agenda here to remind you. But this has been in the public docket for over a month. And it has been discussed on this floor. And I did not see the need for having the department chairman here just because it's always been historically the thing to do. The chairman has just asked for anyone in favor. The chairman's just asked for anyone against. There's no one here. They've had an opportunity to learn about it. I'm not surprised there's no one here to speak for it or against it. Therefore, I'm closing the public hearing. That's my decision.
Actually,
I'm gonna challenge that
I'm going to
for-
correct you one teensy bit.
Yeah.
It's my decision
Sorry, it is.
whether or
Mr.
not
President.
the
Yes.
public hearing is going to be closed. So,
I'm making the
based on the looks and the feedback from everyone else, I think we're going to leave this public hearing open.
I'm okay
If
with
something comes out of the hearing at that time, there's thousands of people, as we all know, watching this right now who might say, I didn't know anything about $2.7 million for water line replacement, and I have something to say about it. It might be a first, but there might be someone out there that has something to say about it. And so for that reason, I'm going to keep this public hearing open. And you can be free to have the discussion at your committee meeting with the department head. The public hearing is still open, and there'll be no violation of the open meeting law or anybody saying that we did something that we should not have done and cause us to reset the clock. So for that reason, this public hearing will remain open, and we will continue till the 9th?
I think it's April 2nd, I think.
4/2. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Withers, when you're ready, you can read the public hearing for the notice for the next public
The
hearing.
next public hearing is relative to the following: a loan order to upgrade the wastewater treatment plant located at 27 Pond Street, which is in North Attleboro. Ordered that $1,500,000 is appropriated for the permitting, bidding, construction oversight, and construction costs associated with plant upgrades to the city's wastewater treatment facility located at 27 Pond Street, North Attleboro, Mass., collectively the project, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $1,500,000 under Chapter 29C of the general laws and/or Section 7, subsection 1 of Chapter 44 of the general laws, or any other enabling authority, that the mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project. Any premium received by this city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this order in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 7, subsection 1 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in opposition of the $1.5 million loan order? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Anyone neither for nor against? Councilor Conti.
I wouldn't dream of closing this public hearing.
Any other comments of
So,
Vice President?
I hate to be the fly in the ointment on this one. I 100% felt that we needed to keep the other public hearing open. We did have a presentation and there is a time constraint and lead time with regards to this particular piece of business that Tom Hayes it was pretty adamant about when he was here before that meeting fell off the rails on whether or not he should have been here to speak about it or anything like that. So again, I don't want to be a fly in the ointment. I could see where this one, where we have had discussion with it and we had questions with regards to it. If you wanted to close this one, I wouldn't be in opposition of that one specifically. However, I understand the topic and I understand it as it relates to the other public hearing. My concern is, again, we are operating underneath a lead time for this. It takes like 20 weeks to get the parts that are necessary for this. So I just wanted to bring that part up for discussion.
So a couple of points. First point I want to make is that this is actually in Attleboro. It's 27 Pond Street North is the address. So just make that point of clarity. The other thing I want to say is that I did have a conversation with the city solicitor about the department head speaking before the council at that committee meeting. She said that's highly unusual. The opportunity for the department head to address the council would be in a public open forum that was advertised after the time of the public hearing. So she said that she can't say that it's never happened that way, but it's highly unusual. And everything that is said at that meeting prior to the public hearing would have to be either read verbatim by transcript into the record at the time of the public hearing, or the person that presented the information must read exactly what they said if there was a question asked by a counselor, what the question was, and what the answer was. So I decided that we won't proceed that way again. We will have it at the, we will receive public testimony at the public hearing as we're supposed to and required to by open meeting and other public meeting laws. So that's sort of what happened with that. So while I appreciate the timeline, it is what it is when you get it to us. Everybody knows what the timeline is. We've called for this public hearing as quickly as Councilor Conti could based on the schedule. So I think that we're ready to proceed, and I'm going to leave that public hearing open as well and continued until April 2nd.
Okay. The final public hearing is relative to application for a special permit pursuant to Section 17-10.15, registered marijuana dispensary uses of the revised ordinances from Major Bloom LLC, 50 Loring Street, Hyde Park, Mass., to operate a marijuana business for property located at 20 John William Street, Attleboro, Mass., said premises being Assessor's Plat number 33, lots number 22-1A, 22-1C, 22-1D, and 222, located in an industrial zoning district and having an area of 3.62 plus acres.
Thank you. Before we start, Councilor Holmes, will you just go right into that office and grab the binder for this public hearing? Oh, thank you. Never mind. I'm sure I'm going to need it, so I wanted to make sure I had it. Is there anyone here well, Jay will need one. Yeah. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Come right on up and introduce yourself.
Hello, President Cooper and Honorable Counselor. My name is Lori Lucien. I am the CEO of Major Bloom LLC. I will be speaking on behalf of the team today to talk about our company, what we intend to do in Attleboro in the space, and to give you a little bit more information off what we submitted. I'm not sure if we have a clicker.
We do.
Hey.
Behind the laptop.
No, she's got it.
I found it. Success.
And just one comment before you move on. Did the council office get the plans that you handed to the council tonight before? If not, if you could just give them to Virginia in the side office before you go.
Oh, absolutely.
Not now.
Absolutely.
And the other comment I want to make, this does get displayed to the community through some high-tech wizardry.
Okay.
But this is not the community outreach meeting. I see that it says that on your first slide, and I want to make sure that the public is aware that the purpose of this meeting tonight is not the community outreach meeting. I'm sure you're repurposing your slides, but in the spirit of true transparency, this is not that.
No, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a slide agenda. We're just going to talk about who we are, talk about the redevelopment project that we're doing at 20 John Williams, briefly talk about our security measures, talk about our plans to prevent diversion to minors, our nuisance policies, and our community impact. So who are we? Our company mission really is based on seeking to establish ourselves as leaders in the industry for providing premium grade and sustainably grown product, and also infusing our company with our values, which is that we truly care about the community, and we're trying to figure out how to balance business with philanthropy. That's basically Major Bloom. The team, my name is Laura Lucien. I grew up in Haiti. I came to America when I was 15 years old in 2002. I initially thought I was going to be a doctor, so I went to undergrad, did bio, then went and became a scientist in the cancer space. The reason why that's important, the research I did there is part of why I am in the cannabis space as we speak. And so after that, I did not go to become a doctor. I went into healthcare in the legal space, and I became a corporate healthcare attorney. And after practicing for a while and realizing that the corporate structure wasn't for me, I went into the cannabis space and developed a company called Greenlight Business Solutions, which is designed to help underprivileged people access the cannabis space, because there's a dearth of available attorneys and resources to people who can't afford them but who want to operate in this space. And so that's what I do. The next individual is Ulysses Youngblood, my partner over here. He is a president. His entrepreneurship journey started with his family. They own a commercial washing company. He is also an MBA from Northeastern, also local. And our other partner, Tyrone Gomes, is our main cultivator. He has been in the industry for over 10 years. His first experience in cultivation was in a large-scale facility, so they threw him right in. And he also has had a role in designing most of the large-scale cultivation facilities in both Massachusetts and in Maine, as part of his job as director for a Dutch lighting company. And last but not least, we have Val, who will be our Chief Retail Operations Officer. There he is. Though he is a computer engineer, he spent over 15 years in really working with operations and developing sales and things of that sort. So his degree is a little misleading as to his actual skills into the business. One of the things I want to highlight about Major Bloom is that we were actually awarded an economic empowerment certificate by the Cannabis Control Commission. What that means is the commission has recognized Major Bloom as a company that is committed to economically empowering those communities that were most impacted by the prohibition on cannabis. So as part of that, we had to prove that not only did we have a past history of helping communities that have been disproportionately impacted, but that we had a progressive outlook on the future as to what we're going to implement in our own company to help continue the mission of empowering neighborhoods economically. We talked about. So I want to move on to the redevelopment project at 20 John Williams, which is why we're all here. So just a brief background, what we're going to be doing at that property is we are going to be cultivating and manufacturing product and then retailing them on the space as well. It's all being done at 20 John Williams. And this is the layout. It's provided for your reference if you would like to take a look. It's 19,000 square feet.
What page are we on?
Oh, this is just for, this is, it's towards the end. This is just a brief, just a bookmark for it later. You're welcome. So before he talks specifically, Larry's going to talk specifically about the actual layout and the site plan. What I would like to talk about is what the benefits that our redevelopment process that he's going to talk about is going to have for Attleboro. One of the things that people really aren't aware of, and it's pretty counterintuitive, and that is having a dispensary in your neighborhood actually reduces crime. There has been research done in California that showed that properties that were closer to the dispensary actually had a reduction in crime, and that's contributed to the increased security that we have. It's well lit, and our team is trained to identify suspicious activities, so we are more apt to identify issues like that. And also in Colorado, researchers that they've done a study and property values increased by 8.4% for those that were directly around it, because cannabis companies bring in additional resources. As I will talk about the community impact program that we have, those programs help increase resources and access and thereby increase the values. Another thing that we've seen is reduced opioid usage. There's been a 20% reduction in individuals using opioid for pain treatment in states where they have dispensaries. And so that's another aspect that I'm very passionate about, simply for my science background. We're also going to be cleaning up the property which had an oil spill, and we're going to be going over it and doing a full cleanup. So that's also going to add to the value of the overall property. And we're also going to use solar. Our partner, Ulysses, he has a team of over 100 people under him at Sunrun, and that is a solar panel company. And we intend to use renewable energy on the space to kind of remove some of the environmental issues that come with cultivation. And just to talk about compliance, our retail space will be less than 5,000 square feet as required by the zoning ordinance. We're 100 feet from principal residence. We are 500 feet from schooling and kindergartens, and from registered daycares and public parks as required by the zoning ordinance. I'm going to briefly move over to our security measures. I'm going to talk about it from a high level only because it would be kind of terrible to kind of tell everybody our secrets on how to keep our place safe. So we have hired and contracted the Hilder Group to be our chief security officer. and the individual assigned to our group is Jerome Hanley. So a fun fact about Jerome Hanley, he is a third-year law student, and actually was one of the first students to take my cannabis law seminar course at Suffolk. And he was able to combine what he learned from the class with his experience as a Marine, to provide us a great program for our security group. So one of the things that we want to focus on is that we're going to have limited hours. It's not going to be a 24-hour operation. We're going to be, our plan ultimately, I don't know if you guys are following licensing in Massachusetts, but delivery licenses they're drafting the regulations in April, and our intent is to have delivery, and I know that that's going to help reduce a lot of concerns about traffic and parking and things of that sort. So as of April, we'll know exactly what we need to do to obtain those licenses, and as an economic empowerment certificate holder, the state has given us priority for those types of licenses. So we'll be first in line to be able to access that. We're also going to do appointment only, which is a way to really to control the individuals who are going to be having access to the space. And we're going to have obviously 24/7 surveillance. We're going to have off-site monitoring, on-site security personnel. There's going to be separate locations for entry for customers versus employees. Access control. It's going to be a state-of-the-art security company security setup designed to ensure that diversion doesn't occur both internally, meaning from our employees, and externally from individuals coming in. And for our employees, we're going to have extensive background checks, which are required as part of the state application. Continued training. Our director of security is going to ensure that there's periodic training happening so that the suspicious activities that needs to be identified to ensure our safety is something that they have at the tip of their finger. We're going to ID all of our customers to ensure that they're of age, and like I said before, it's going to be appointment only, and all of our products are going to be sealed. We're going to have individuals preventing loitering by walking around to ensure that no one's hiding on the property, and that's going to be random. We're going to have limited access to the parts that actually have product, and only certain personnel will have access to places that have cannabis, to places that have the money. So we're going to separate all that, and individuals will not be giving access unless they've reached a certain clearance. And that will be done in coordination with our chief security officer. And lastly, the steps to prevent diversion to minors involves IDing. Ensuring that our staff is trained in identifying false identification cards. We're gonna have a machine that you can just swipe, and it's gonna tell you whether it's authentic, but that also doesn't tell you if the person really looks like the person on there. So that we're gonna do a lot of training to ensure that older sisters aren't letting their little sisters pass for them. So we're going to maintain a lot of training, and we talked about limited access to the property, meaning you can't even be on the property if you're not 21. So part of the sweep that we're going to be doing is ensuring that those who are on the property are legally permitted to be on there. And even on our website, we're going to have information that is going to talk about the risks of early consumption to individuals who aren't 21 plus, because I don't think there's enough educational material out there that really supports why individuals can't just consume under a particular age. So we're going to do a lot of that information on our website to educate minors. And the nuisance, we have gone through tremendous strides to ensure that our anti-nuisance policy is up to par. So in terms of noise, we're not a traditional manufacturing company, so you're not going to be hearing a lot of banging. Our stores are going to be insulated, and because of the appointment style, we are really going to have an ability to control access and flow to our property. So we're not going to book so many appointments where it causes a lot of massive noise and disturbance for the neighbors. In terms of sites, we've hired and partnered with a landscape company. Michael is a representative, and they are really helping us to beautify with plants and other, I don't know how to speak the language very well, but it's going to be very pretty when he's done with it. In terms of odor, which is a concern that we heard when we had our community outreach meeting, Tyrone, who has been in the industry for over 9 years, he's designed a system where all of our rooms are sealed, so there's no exchange between the outside air and the inside air. And we're also going to install carbon filters. There's complete overkill for the odor, but we're going to have carbon filters in there too, which is going to really ensure that there's no odors that come out and disturb the neighbors. And in terms of traffic and parking, the way that we're doing it is, again, we're going to have appointment only. We're also going to maintain to look at how traffic is going around the area, and we're going to provide on-site information about what's happening around the area to people who go to our website, so they'll know this is not a good time to come or this is a better time to come, to set an appointment. And eventually, our goal is to go into delivery. So we are going to use that model, and we're also going to give discounts for ride sharing. So if you come and you carpool, there's going to be a carpool discount. And eventually, if things get too much, we're going to have a shuttle service that we'd like to provide, where we pick individuals up from public transportation and bring them to the location. That way, we can prevent 15 cars from having to be in the property and just have that one bus. And lastly, our community impact fee, our community impact program. Our community impact program is a program that is required by the state, but it's more than that to us. Our partners understand that we are given a tremendous privilege by being part of this program. I mean, just to be realistic, there are hundreds of millions and thousands of people sitting in jail right now for what we can all legally do, and we do not take that lightly. And as a result, we take it upon ourselves to try to economically empower all communities we go into. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to deal with unemployment, which is a big factor that resulted from this war on drugs, where if an individual was removed from their family, that income was removed. And so it led to widespread unemployment. So we're going to have workshops to educate people on how to properly search for employees. We're going to have resume writing and cover letter writing workshops. We're also going to give first dibs to all of our job opportunities to residents of Attleboro, because we want to start here first and then expand outside places. We also have a diverse applicant requirement, where for every opportunity that we have to interview at least one diverse person. And by diverse, we mean somebody who's a veteran, women, and the run-of-the-mill garden variety diversity. We're also going to have business development. What that means is we're going to provide workshops where if you're an entrepreneur, we will have workshops where we teach you about formation. We teach you about some of the risks that involves with running the particular type of business, and it doesn't necessarily have to be cannabis. This is any business that you want to start, and I'll be there as a business attorney providing services in hosting the workshops. Finally, we want to have a mentorship tree where we connect local neighborhood. I think that in order for this system to work, all businesses have to get involved in order for us to really work to implement this direct impact program. We have to get other business owners know how important they are in somebody's journey as an entrepreneur by just allotting 1 or 2 hours a week to talk to somebody about your experience. So that's one of the programs that we also want to work with. And I think that it's not only going to help our company, but it's also going to help foster a feeling of community between all the business owners in Attleboro. Also, one of the big things is we have the taxation that's going to be on the retail aspect, which is going to bring in a lot of income for the community. I mean, I don't know if you're seeing some of the numbers that are happening in Massachusetts, but there's a lot of money that's being generated by this. And from the retail sales, it's going to result in increased funds, and the 3% annual gross sales is also a great thing that is impacted. So the municipal tax only attaches to the retail. I'm like a law professor, so I start teaching a lot. So just say, be quiet, Lori, if I'm teaching things that you don't want to hear about. But the municipal tax is only applied to retail stores. And the 3% direct impact fee is applied across the board to both cultivation and retail. So by virtue of having a vertically integrated model in the town, we're actually increasing the revenue that you're receiving from us. We're also going to create over 20 jobs in this space and volunteer over 150 man-hours per year with local communities. And those hours are going to be determined after we have additional meetings to determine, not just with us, additional meetings with the town to determine how do they want us to serve them. Because we had one meeting that was the introductory community outreach meeting. We're going to initially have further meetings to really figure out how we can be a part of the community and how we can really serve the issues that they may have that I'm unaware of. And that's it. That's what we have, and I'm going to hand it off to Larry to talk about the specifics, if you don't have any questions for me.
Any questions for Lori?
Can I have just 1 second, please? In your packets, I believe you have a handout. What I'm going to put on the display board is the the same sheets, just enlarged, and I thought maybe you could just follow through with them. And we will give sheets to them. My name is Larry Tilton. We're from Tilton and Associates, 81 John L. Deach Boulevard, North Attleboro. We've been here before on other projects, and I was fortunate enough to get engaged in this one, and quite pleased to do the presentation for this project. The site, 20 William Street, is, as I'm sure most of you know, is off from County Street. There's Sumner Street. If you go out County, you hit Sumner Street, drop down Sumner Street, and you go in on William Street, and 20 William Street is the location. It is a 3.62 acre site. It is made up of 4 lots in actuality. It is zone industrial in the site, and it is, for lack of better words, it's an old industrial site. That area is starting to go in the decline side, and buildings are starting to be abandoned and whatnot. So the fact that this project is a redevelopment scenario, it is a fantastic use for this building that is structurally sound, structurally integrity, is just going in the minus direction, so it needs to turn around. So as you work on that, it's fine. The site, if you enter on John Williams, there is a, down Summer, you turn into John Williams. If you went right on straight, in Summer, you'd run into an old building that is gone well beyond its needs in repair, and it is under process of being cleaned, and that's right here. But if you turn right and you go down Williams, you enter the existing facility through a driveway in the front. There are 2 buildings on the lot. There's you first see a maintenance building, which probably was the old maintenance plows and lawnmowers and stuff. Presently, it's being occupied by a landscape company that's renting the facility. So there is operations or work going on there, and there's some equipment stored and boats stored, and you can see that the use that was the primary use is well gone into disrepair and whatnot. The main facility is, in total, is about 27,000 square feet. The larger component is 130 by 100. It's a main one floor manufacturing facility component. I was not around at the time they were doing, so I couldn't really tell you what they did in there, other than the neighbors told me there was jewelry, which makes sense. Then you have a connection, a courtyard, and you have a 2-story masonry structure that looks like it may have been the offices and whatnot in there, but it is. But again, its integrity is fabulous as far as that goes. It does need cleanup, it does need renovation, and the applicant's intending to do that. Parking, if you come in the driveway, the main parking field is in the front of the building. There is a loading area on the side, existing conditions. There is courtyard in the middle. It must have been for employees and whatnot. And then to the right, it's landscaped in mainly overgrown woods and trees. The rear of the site is landscapes and existing trees. It must have been the wood that is just left there. So relatively, the site is pretty flat. There isn't a lot of grade change between, other than William Street drops down into it, and then it runs pretty flat, pretty much primarily at 120 elevation, and we did do the topo and bring. The building is serviced by electric and water from Williams. It's serviced to the rear with its sanitary out to the municipal sewage line that runs through your trunk line facility right now, and there's a parallel to it, there's a drain system that must be the municipal drain system and whatnot. So the site also has a deeded right to use the adjacent property way that goes into another manufacturing facility to enter the rear of the site. There was a loading dock They have the right to use this way, and it does run with the land. Enter the rear of the building, there are loading docks in here, and there's a way to back the trucks in and park and whatnot. So there were two main areas that they loaded the building with. There's another use going on the property, and it happens to be to the MBTA. And of course, that's the high-speed rail, so what's this all about? So what it is apparently the maintenance people for the MBTA have the right to come in, go around onto this gravel through a gate, and then enter their access road that runs parallel to their tracks and service their tracks and do the thing, and then they come back through and lock up. And so this is how they're getting in and out, which clears up that situation. As I mentioned, it had 4 tracks of land that make up this 3.6. The one track is located in here. There's 2 little parcels off the way, and there's a little triangular parcel here that sets up this use that's going on with the MBTA component. So it does, it has all the makings, it has all in, just to be, needs to go through renovation and redevelopment. The proposed facility, structurally, the integrity of the outside of the building will stay pretty much the same. It's rectangular, 1 and 2 story. The parking field in the front of the building will be configured right now. It doesn't have any set configuration. It's just wide open. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a total of 38 parking spaces, 10 by 20 in size. We'll come in the driveway. We'll put a parking field in the center of the parking lot. We'll have parking, both handicapped and straight parking for the building in the front. And where all the boats and equipment stored right now, there'll be configured a parking field. There'll be islands striped, not necessarily built up islands, probably at grade islands, just striped so that plowing purposes and whatnot. And the security fencing that is, and again, probably some of this is in the state of flux because it's going through changes and revisions. The recommendation from the local police department is that we put an 8-foot chain link system gated at the entrances around, and it's shown on your plan, and I'm on number 3 right now, shown in red. We chain link this off, and then if you have an earlier plan that we had the fence up next to the building, that field is being pushed back and square off and secure the back. The delivery, from what I know about this business, is pretty much through the rear of the building, the security lockdown system, so that the trucks come and go, there's a lockout. This is very similar to what we did when I did the casino in Plainville. They had, when the vault trucks come in or the secure stuff, they came in, the doors shut, they were in secure locations, and then they went inside. So that's what this little gate, it's very much not a lockdown system. So security is through 8-foot chain link fence and first line of defense, and then there's cameras outside and all the other things that the security people put up. But grade-wise, not to change much really in contours, overall appearance, other than be cleaned up and whatnot. It is going to, we'll clean up some of this rubbish and stuff. Details, there is a sheet in here that details, we need to detail the areas for the van parking, because we're putting in 44 to 45 new parking spaces. By code, we need about 25, but we can get 44 to 45 in there pretty comfortably. And we're not going to do a 9 by 18, we're going to do a 10 by 20, and the van parking is the van parking. And sign-wise, up at the front, at the entrance, there's an existing sign. That will be, even though we detail the sign, that's going to be the sign location for the new. There's no sense in redeveloping a wheel, it's there. So they'll just change it out. Gates and chain links is gates and chain links. We've got, there's the landscape feature plan. And I believe the representative's here. If he wants to talk about it, he could, or I can quickly bump over it. There are some landscape features that they want to do because they're trying to upgrade the outside so it looks more pleasing to the overall. So if you'd care to speak to your plan, I'll be...
I would.
And what they are is their individual sheets. They have the same sheets as you do.
My name is Michael Sadler. I'm from Bishop Land Design. We're providing landscape architectural services for the project, or at least for the special permit application. Our office works with native ecology systems to create sites that are net positive players both in community and in local ecology. So our idea is simply to use landform, permeable pavements, and vegetative plantings, both evergreen and deciduous, to create screens. Views have both sides, screens from the outside, screens from the inside, to create kind of cohesive, comfortable consumer environment. This grading plan is obviously, as my colleague Larry mentioned, it's a living document set. A lot of these things are still under revision. And our planting plan will use exclusively native varieties of deciduous, evergreen, understory perennial, and grasses, and ground covers. So we have the site. Rory provides the great programming. She provides the canvas. We just provide a little bit of paint here and there.
Then it's always a question, not so much in some of the other facilities that we are involved in, because I know how they function inside. This one, I don't know how they function in. So I suggested that we have an architect that actually does these facilities, kind of explain how the workings of one of these facilities go. And so I had this little floor plan prepared by them, and let them explain how one of these facilities works.
Larry,
Yes.
before we do, I think Councilor Holmes has a question, and did anybody else have any questions at this point?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, so to get into the parking lot, this is
I'm sorry?
To get into the parking lot, this is a whole new,
No, that's the existing drive.
this is the existing driveway to get into the current parking
Yes.
lot? Okay, and the one that would be a shared driveway, you said there was easement, that would only be for deliveries, or would they not be using that one?
No, that's for the employees and the deliveries to the facility in and out.
Okay.
And that, they purposely wanted those separated.
Okay, and so this is where customers would be going?
That's
Okay.
customer and day-to-day visitor.
Okay.
The rear is for loading employees, people that have a need to be back there.
Okay.
And,
Do you know how many delivery, because it is kind of a quiet street, do you know if there will be, how many deliveries?
That's the entrance to that other facility. That's their job, that's their factory entrance.
Yes.
No,
So-
I'll relay,
Okay. Maybe I'll ask, I can
I'll let
ask-
them answer. They know a lot more about how one of these facilities run than I do.
Okay,
Civil part I can deal with, lighting I can deal with. Okay?
okay.
You want to answer her question?
So our deliveries we're contemplating would be no greater than twice a week. So it would just be, and it's not even like a large truck. It's more one of those, they look like the Fiat little ones that come around and provide product. Obviously, when we're constructing, we'll have big trucks coming in. But when we're operational, for the actual delivery that we're receiving, it's coming in and out of there.
Okay, thank you.
And we don't know what the regulations for the actual delivery licenses. I'm ensuring that we're not conflating the term delivery by delivery license as opposed to receiving delivery of product.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick, when you say one of the flatbeds, are you talking like the Amazon?
I think they're talking
truck
straight
set?
box vans. They're not
Okay.
talking, I don't believe they're talking tractors, tractor
Yeah.
trailers. 18s. Right?
Yeah, correct.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions
I
at
think
this
we're going
time?
to explain the floor plan. Oh, okay.
Hi guys, my name is Tyrone Gomes. I just flew in from Europe last night, so I'm a little bit jet lagged, but I'm going to do my best to try to speak to this floor plan right here. Just to talk briefly about myself, I have been in this space for almost 10 years now. I do have 3 licenses in California, and for the past 2.5 years, I've served as the technical director of a Dutch lighting company. So someone mentioned earlier that I've been able to design a lot of these plans, and that is the case. A lot of commercial facilities in Massachusetts and in Canada also, and all over the U.S. So this floor plan right here, what you're looking at, this project is laterally integrated, meaning retail and cultivation. And you're looking at 2 zones. This is pretty much the retail side, right here. And then right here is, thank you. Right here is pretty much cultivation, right here, this section. So you can see that this flow kind of maneuvers like this. And the reason why is because you would only want employees that are on the cultivation side to have access to the cultivation side, and retail employees should be on the retail side. In the center, you're going to have security, so they'll be able to monitor and be able to get through the facility with relative ease. And when somebody comes in, when they start their shift, they would come and they would change their clothes, and then you could see they'd come through this air shower, so they take off any contaminants or pathogens that they have on them, and then they're able to maneuver throughout the cultivation facility. You're looking at pretty much 5 different flower rooms and 1 bedroom. And then this is the dry room, so when you harvest, everything has to be in that environment for 2 weeks. And then you have a break room for employees, and you have some restrooms. This is, we're calling it the water closet. That's pretty much where water is going to be purified and stored in holding tanks. From there, it'll be able to transport throughout the facility, and people will be able to make custom nutrient batches for whatever life stage that room happens to be at. Did you guys have any questions for me as far as the flow? Okay, cool.
I do.
Yes.
So the receiving room down here, this is the back door where those deliveries would be. That's the side of the building that would be facing the deliveries. Is that correct?
There's two areas to receive. There's one in the front, and that's kind of how the building was designed originally, and then there's one in the back. So we intend to use the one in the back. But in the very beginning, this can be used, during construction, and then storage. Stuff can be stored there, but once it's developed completely, it's not really going to be used.
Okay. I see that. It says Citra. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this plan seems to detail a building that's much smaller than ones that we've seen in the past. You're basically talking about 3,000 square feet of growing area.
5,000.
5,000.
If you count these 2 flower rooms right there, it is, and it's a lot. It's for a commercial facility. It is a lot smaller than some of the facilities that I've designed and some of the facilities that I've ran. And part of that is that Major Bloom wants to be craft. Once you get to a certain size, you're no longer craft. You're no longer providing the very best quality. You're more commercial flower. So it is smaller commercial facility.
So the question leads to volume of sales and traffic of buyers. In 5,000 square feet, I assume that the marijuana is grown in cycles. You've got 3 growing rooms, so I'm thinking maybe 1/3 of the year, one's growing 1/3 of the years, another one. Is that how that works?
Well, there's a lot of variables depending on your genetics. That changes how long it takes something to harvest completely. But with this many rooms, you'll always be harvesting. A room will always be coming down,
But because you're small, you won't be harvesting a lot.
That depends on the genetics. You can have 5 plants under a light, and that can produce a half a pound. You can have the same amount of electricity, the same amount of water, and triple that.
Okay.
It really depends on who you're trying to target.
Yep.
If you want the connoisseur versus.
I'll get back to this at the end if I may, Mr. President.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
So we also, in the terms of lighting, there is, yes.
Yes, sure.
You have no plans to change the footprint of that manufacturing building that is there?
Decent size, we're maintaining it as is.
You're going to use the existing footprint and building and renovate that? No
Correct.
additions?
Correct.
Subtractions? Whatever.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Are you going to,
Extractions on the outside, we're going to be cleaning up
no,
some
not
of the...
distractions, detractions, like taking something down. How about that utility building out front? Is
That one is, it's gonna remain, but we're gonna use it to keep our, like, it's gonna be for ground maintenance.
Outside, mate.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the last question that has been raised is lighting. We very typically deal with a dark sky type design with most of the car dealerships and facilities that I'm quite typically involved in. We're trying to eliminate a lot of light pollution going up, but we want to control the lighting on the site, but not illuminate the neighbor's property or on the other side of the property. So we use a LED down lighting system, and we produce a lighting plan with the illumination numbers that you see in your set, so that when at the property line, we're zeroed out. And it's about light pollution. We can light the site, but we don't need to light everybody around, and we don't need to look like the northern lights when somebody's coming down the street. So we adopted it. This has been reviewed by the authorities, primarily the enforcement side. Suggestions have been made that we have dark spots that we're going to have to figure out a way to address. We have adequate lighting for pedestrian and everything, but we don't have adequate lighting for the enforcement side. So we're going to go back to the drawing board with the lighting contractor, and some of the spots is to the rear of the building. You see this area that's zeroed out? It's great for us. We have wall packs on the building, but it's not really up to par for the security people. So we're going to come up with a system. We've straightened, your plan shows our security fence going straight out so we can have a DMZ zone in here. So we're going to figure out a way to put lighting out here and have lighting come illuminate this rear of the building. So that will get this. We got another area right in here that we're going to have to, we own this property, so we'll probably end up running lights on poles out here and bring them back in. So, and we're going to kind of, not really dead, but they want more. They want help here, and they want help in the courtyard area. So, as I mentioned, it's a working plan. We got light pollution and dark sky type design, but we've got to incorporate an enforcement side. So it can be done. It just, we didn't quite hit it on the first shot. So, answer any questions you may have on the site side of it.
Any other questions from Mr. Tilton at this time? Thank you.
Any further questions for me?
Any additional questions for the applicant at this time? Councilor Conti and Councilor
So
DeLucia.
Lucy, if I could quickly summarize your operation, you're going to be a lower volume, more expensive craft specialty marijuana supplier. I'm interested in knowing what you are forecasting as a dollar volume in your business plan for first and second year.
Right, so the value of that amount isn't just incumbent on what we produce, because we're also going to get from wholesalers. So based on what we're seeing a lot of companies make $1 million a month. Like, that's kind of the average of what we're seeing so far. And so that's kind of what we're anticipating to be safe. It could be less because we're not, these are Boston numbers, by the way. So it's all going to vary, but that's what we're anticipating based on like what we've seen so far.
So with a lower volume, that $1 million a month translates to how many customers?
So I think that's like if 50 customers come in per day, is that what our plan was based on? Sorry, if 75 customers come in per day.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my questioning.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilor DeLisio, I'm sorry.
Thank you for your presentation. At first, I'm not going to lie to you, I was a little skeptical because this isn't our first rodeo with these sort of establishments. So I liked a lot of the detail that you had in there. Is this Major Bloom's first location?
It is Major Bloom's first location, but as a group, as you know, Tyrone already has some locations in California.
Why Attleboro?
Well, first of all, if we looked at the landscape of when we were looking, Attleboro was one of the friendliest towns to accept us. And when
Can you say that again?
Please, could you say that again?
Can you say it again? No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
I mean that in the most respectful way because
Right.
all I've heard for the last 3 to 5 years about marijuana, and I'm sorry to go on a
Go
tangent,
ahead.
is that we're unfriendly, it's in the wrong location, we don't know what we're doing. So please, say that again.
Right, it has been one of the most friendly towns to us. We've been looking a lot. And if you just turn on your TV, you're seeing bans, you're seeing moratoriums, and the towns that do have legalization, they're not the easiest to go through because they're trying to figure it out as we go through. It's not even their fault. This is very new, and people are afraid. And so as we're moving through this, I thought that this was a town that was very open to hearing me speak and hearing what we had to say about our economic empowerment certification, even allowing us to explain what it means, because even the state didn't do a great job at really doing the outreach to let municipalities know that it literally means that this company has a commitment to empowering neighborhoods, that we cared so much that we applied for this status. So I hope that answers the question.
Can I?
Yes, you may.
So you talked about the bans and moratoriums. We actually had one in place starting in 2012 because we want to make sure that we got our ducks in a row. And the way this ordinance looks now is very much different than it was back in 2012, even when we started really kind of navigating. I know Mr. Tilton talked a little bit about enforcement. So have you folks had the opportunity to sit down with the Attleboro Police and the police chief? And
we have.
Obviously, I understand the importance and sensitivity of not talking about the specifics.
So we did. We had 2 meetings, and we met with the chief of police and also the director of planning. That was scary for me, but also awesome. And they basically told us to some of the amends that we made, like they wanted a vehicle trap, and they gave us some advice on how they thought it would be best to position some of the cameras. And so we're currently still working with them. We've gotten the plan to a place where I feel like there's maybe like one or a few things to upgrade. But I think that they've done a great job at really helping us see their perspective of what's required for security.
Great. I like the whole aspect of giving back, and especially when you said business and philanthropy. So I think it's unique to what we've heard in the past. But along those same lines, have you had the opportunity to speak with some of the neighbors? And what is some of the feedback that you've received?
We had a community outreach meeting in December, and we had to be fully transparent, some of their concerns made sense based off how marijuana was treated in the media for the past, since 1920, since the Mexican Revolution. I'm teaching again, I'm sorry. I'm going to pull it back. But, and there's a lot that goes into that, and we're completely, we understand. And our approach is when we are operational, because it takes, as you know, a long time from the moment you have a meeting to the time you actually put a shovel to the pavement. And so as we proceed, we want to really get input on how we can actually serve, because we presented our plan and we presented it at the meeting, but as we move forward, is this what they need? Do you want us to volunteer in academics or in athletics? I'm not sure yet. And I know what I want to bring to this, which is athletics and mindfulness teaching classes. I teach Tai Chi and Qigong, and I want to do that here as well in the schools. But I'm not going to force people to do Qigong. You kind of have to want to do it. So we want to have meetings to figure out how to best provide our resources and talents to Attleboro.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council Reynolds.
So I just want to say that I love the small boutique-like feel of this, that it's different. Right. It's different. It's, it will have its retail and all of that and the marketing, but it seems more community feel to me. And I like that. I think will be, when it's finally up and running, it will be less frightening to people that are fearful of it. And I like that your sense, just the way that you've presented this, of a community feel. And I hope that you've gotten that same feel back from us, because it feels right, feels good, and I like it.
Well, thank you. Well, not to go off tangent slightly, the property has been in this family's for a long time, and when you walk in there, you can feel it. I don't want to even give about their secrets about their family, but that family meant something in Attleboro, and the fact that we can even maintain some of their desks, some of their artifacts, we're keeping some of that history alive. And when you come into our store, you'll be able to see some of their relics. So that's another part where I feel like the building is transitioning and changing hands, but we're still maintaining some of the essence of what made the Guyot brothers great to begin with. And they've also been very helpful and awesome people.
Thank you. Before we go to Vice President Parikh, can you talk about any environmental remediation that might be necessary on the property that you're aware of? Was there any?
Right, so you're aware of the spill that took place. We're doing a 21E. Based off the preliminary information that we were given, obviously they have to go do the testing. But the fact that there has been no runoff on neighboring property lines, and one of our neighbors has actually sold the property and had to do testing themselves, and so that gives us a little bit more peace that this is not something that's rampant. We're in the process of getting it cleaned up, and that's one of the things we're excited about too, because it's very hard to transfer ownership of a property that's in the state, so we get to come in, redevelop it, and bring in some new life, which is in congruence with our name, Major Bloom. That's why we chose it. We want to have the feeling of invigorating and revitalizing the neighborhoods that we participate in.
Thank you. Vice President Parikh, and then I believe Council Corbis.
Thank you. Earlier in your presentation, one of the concerns that I've heard in this particular area is the fragrance. And I know that you had stated that you're kind of going overboard to prevent that. Can you just go back and discuss that just a little bit
just
more?
a little bit, and if I need, I'm going to bring in Tyrone, because he's really the mastermind of our plan. But basically, we have sealed rooms. So each of the rooms, that the air is not going to be interfacing with the air outside. We're actually pumping in artificial CO2 to ensure that we have the proper balance. In addition to that, we're going to have fans that are circulating within that sealed room. And the fan is really going to allow the air to hit those carbon filters that are it's set up in a concentric manner where it's on opposite ends. And so we really, and plus in conjunction with our HVAC internal that system that's internal, we really believe that we're going to have the ability to tame this odor. And I went to our facility in California, and I believe he uses the same system, and you couldn't really tell that this is what was going on in that building.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add to that? If you would come to the podium. If you would come to the podium, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the advantages of having a sealed room is that you're not getting that air exchange. A lot of people choose to have air exchange because you can take advantage of the free CO2. So that's one of the advantages. It's a little bit more expensive, but you can really mitigate that smell. And then so we'll have carbon filters in the actual flowering rooms, but then in the hallways as well. So if the smell does seep out of the sealed rooms, which the walls will be made of a material that it's kind of like a refrigerator, so it's not sheetrock that can just kind of permeate through, and then additional carbon filters in the hallways that will really mitigate. And it's really as simple as, we're still smelling it, put up more carbon filters.
Great.
It's really that simple.
Perfect answer. Thank you very much. And I think it's interesting for all of the other marijuana facilities that have come through, your thoroughness and thoughtfulness with regards to the neighborhood. That's always been my question when we've been voting out on those different measures. Like, how do we know that it won't cause a fragrance in the neighborhood? And I appreciate your thoroughness with regards to that.
Thank you. Well, it's because we understand. Like, we were talking about this. I understand that a lot of companies will not like what I'm about to say, but we understand that this is a new law, and people did choose to live in an industrial zone, but they didn't do this knowing marijuana would come. So if this is what we're bringing to your neighborhood, I understand the fear, I understand your concerns, and what we want to do is mitigate that and ensure that you know that we care about the odors, we care about the aesthetics. I don't want you looking at something ugly in your neighborhood. We definitely want people to know that we're not just trying to come in and put up a shop and not care about what it looks like or who it impacts.
Well, I appreciate your compassion to the residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Dolan?
I'd like to echo I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
sorry.
We'll go back.
I'd like to echo what Councilor Reynolds and Councilor Parika said. You're the first applicant that's come before us, besides being thorough, to talk so much about the community and that you care about the community and the neighbors and your investment in this community. And I just want to say I appreciate that, because it is scary for a lot of people. A lot of people, this is new, and, you do have residents close by. And so I appreciate that very much, and I believe you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Cobus and then Waterman.
I'd like to reiterate that this presentation was very thorough. It was very professional. The one question I have, and I always ask, is about the security aspects of it. And I believe his name was Mr. Hanley,
Yes.
the chief
Jerome
security
Hanley.
officer. My main question is this the first facility that you've designed security for? If not, can you talk about sort of some of the other places you've
Yes, sir. So this is the first cannabis facility that I've done, but my partner, Joe Chamberlain, is contracting for the government right now, doing security assessments and risk assessments for their TS sites. As far as the design goes, we're working with
TS sites.
top secret, so shipyards that house nuclear submarines, stuff like that. And the nature of my job in the military kind of was to exploit weaknesses in the enemy's composition, see it from the outside, and shoot it up to higher command. But as far as the design aspect goes right now, I think it's coming along very nice. Working with the Attleboro Police Department, they've been a great help. We're also communicating with a company on the West Coast that does this full time, and they're kind of holding our hand through this process. But yeah.
Were there any special considerations with the access road to the MBTA and whatnot there?
No, sir, not that I believe, but no.
And the one other question, not related to the security piece, is I believe there was mention of, it sounded almost like when you walk into a clean room and you change and there's the air sprayers or whatnot. Is that common, or I don't remember hearing that.
You can take this one.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it's not very common. It's common with really large facilities. Like I do consulting for a huge company called Bloom Cultivation. They're in Calgary, in Canada, and they have 2 of these air showers. And it's really just to mitigate pathogens, because it's easy to infect the plant. You have to, and that's why the facility was designed to keep only the people that are dealing with the plant on that side of the building. And then also the carbon filters and HEPA filters will help with just mitigating the risk of having pathogens infect the plant and causing powdery mildew and different things. I've been in this space for a very long time, so I know how to deal with that stuff. And then also the design, we put a lot of time in designing it in a way with security in mind. Just to speak to the security thing, before I got involved in the cannabis space, I owned an alarm business for 2 years, so very comfortable with assessing risk and putting up equipment to mitigate.
Perfect.
Basically, there isn't anything he hasn't done. He's also a single father of 3. Like this, it doesn't make sense to me what he does.
Council Waterman.
Did I understand you correctly? Did you say that your business will primarily be by appointment only?
Initially, it's going to be only appointment. And we're going to assess to see how much traffic we get, to see how it impacts everybody. But initially, it's going to be an appointment only kind of setup.
Because of your location, my suspicion is that you will get people either driving in or walking, because you're close enough to the downtown to get some walking traffic. So.
Right. So initially, what we intend to do is really put out marketing to really ensure that individuals know. But if we are dealing with parking, we have a parking lot attendant who's going to ensure that things move fairly quickly and encourage individuals as they wait to download the app and put their order in. So even if you are there, by virtue of downloading the app and putting your order in, you've already shaved off so much time off your waiting. So those are the ways that we're trying to use technology to combat an overflow of individuals coming to our property. But we also know that by the time we open, hopefully there will be others in the area. This is like a horrible competitor, right? I'm like, hopefully other guy have competition, but yeah, it's going to really reduce the flow here, and we're all going to be able to be successful, even if that happens.
Thank you. I appreciate your give back to the community.
Thank you.
Look forward to that.
Thank you.
Council Jackson.
Thank you. I love the fact that you said that you're going to create jobs, and every new business that comes in tells us that for our city.
Right.
What qualifications will you be looking for, and like what's the pay scale like in something like this?
So at Major Bloom, our minimum wage is $15 per hour. That's what we're going to commit to doing initially, because I think that's where the country's moving. And I don't need to get into the social economic politics of this, because then I'll get teachy again, and I don't want to do that to you. But that's one of the things we intend to do. Obviously, as you increase in the complexity of the task, if you're a manager, you'll get more, but that's the least amount that we will be providing to an individual. And we also, so this is like off the record, I guess everything's on the record, but one of the things that we really don't want to see is somebody staying in the same position at our store for a long time, because that means that you're not progressing. And I always use the example of a trimmer. I don't think you came to this planet to be born to be a trimmer. I think you probably have a dream that you probably didn't go for. And at Major Blue, we want to provide resources to do that. We're going to have someone who's going to be our the head of the direct impact group. They're going to develop methods so that they can work with these individuals to see what they want to do. Do they want to go back to school? Do you want to paint? Do you want to dance? Whatever it is that you want to do that makes you passionate, we're going to provide an avenue for our employees to do that too. I don't want to see them in the same position. It's a bad boss.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment to Council Jackson's question. There was a recent commitment, and I only say it because Larry mentioned the casino in Plainville. Mm-hmm. There was a commitment by the casino to hire from impacted communities. And I don't know if you're aware of the struggles that they had with that, but you might want to just look at that,
right.
What they did, what worked for them, and what didn't, and how they pretty substantially lowered the percentage that they committed to hiring from the impacted communities. It's just sort of a sidebar to the discussion, but I wanted to.
One of the things that I do whenever I have an issue is I help somebody create a company that helps me out. For example, Jerome already had the idea for a security company, but he was already in my class. I'm like, let me help you work on this company and start it. So one of my friends, she actually does recruiting. She's a headhunter for major corporations and large schools. She does provosts and CEOs and things of that sort. I've agreed to help her start a company where she is exclusively going to be helping find individuals that fit this criteria of being one from the direct impact, and also trying to connect them with a group to get them trained as well. We're working on that as well. So that's kind of how I thought about approaching this, is getting somebody who has the skills to identify them, start their own company, and get them to do it for Major Bloom. Hopefully for a discount if I help them, but you never know.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments at this time? No, I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present. I look forward to hearing from you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application?
Yes, hello. My name is John Davis. I own the property to the north, which is the largest abutter, which was the Levens Award property. Fully in favor with what they're planning to do over there. We purchased that property back in, I believe, September of last year, and we're in the process of cleaning up the property. Also, when we did purchase the property, we wrote a check to the city for about $84,000 of back taxes that were owed on the property. And we took out around 177 tires and about 60, 70 mattresses. That property was in deplorable condition. I don't know if you guys were familiar with that property. We've cleaned it up, and I can contest to the environmental. We've done a 21E on the property. We've spent a lot of money cleaning the property. We've done drilling. We have extensive data. I can't contest to their property, but there's no leach of oils from that property into our property because we've had it tested along the property line. But I'm fully in favor of what they're doing. I do know Steve, the prior owner, nice gentleman, and I just think the whole area over there can benefit from this, from what we're doing, from what they have. I just think it's a win-win for everybody.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition?
Oh, for Christ's sakes, Frank, sit down.
Why was he coming?
My name is Francis Balut, and I live at 120 Carrier Ave in South Attleboro. And first I need to get one or two questions straightened out to see just what direction that I'm going in. But I also would like to ask, how many people here have read what I call the 3-ring binder, every page? Anyone? You know the binder I'm referring to?
This one.
Had a bunch of rings on it.
This one.
The one that was handed to us, Frank?
Because I had gotten a copy from your assistant, Virginia. Well, anyway, I was here with 3+ hours, and I read every single page. I also looked at all of the maps. I have been down to the site, and I know what roads lead there. I know where the 10-mile river is, how close it is. And with that, I'd like to ask this question, which I had taken pictures and even expanded on my own camera shots. But it says the Cannabis Control Commission requires all marijuana establishments to set aside an amount of money that is sufficient to cover the cost of winding down the affairs of the company and to cover other costs by the commission in dismantling or winding down the company in accordance with company policies and governing laws. Now, I don't know what the policy and governing laws are, but I'm just saying that when it says all companies, how do you want me to address my questions to the new owners?
I don't. I want you to address them to the council, and then they can prepare, if they can prepare something to send to us, if there's something that they need to provide clarity on what you
So that's
present.
one.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, his issue is in the binder, the 3
I know it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that was one question that I had there. And that Major Bloom, he would obtain his insurance coverage through a cannabis insurance company. Now, moving into my own notes, I'm just asking that all of the councilors carefully review some specific areas within what I'll call total contract. And there is a letter from Clean Harbors in referencing to oil residues that had flowed out from a tank and onto paved surface and onto soils. So far, it's been like 7,500 gallons of oil from that tank. And eventually the contact was made with the insurance company and time to discuss the expenses and paid by who. And then there were third parties that were involved. I just don't want to see the city end up in the amount of litigation that it has seen in past years, and the thousands and thousands of dollars that have been spent, and that all of the residents of Attleboro ended up paying the higher priced taxes to end up taking care of that problem. Moving on that, from what I'm going to say here, is that when I was reading, there was one particular page that did say, and I'm aware of the letter saying, Major Bloom will hold the city harmless. But that was written on a sheet of paper that has signature, his signature, but not the mayor.
Just a minute.
Point of order, Mr. Blue, what I'm calling the point of order, you're looking at indemnification number 9, and that's in the contract, the host agreement, which I believe is a official document between Major Bloom and the city. So it's not just written on a piece of paper, this is actually a legal instrument.
Well, to President Cooper, in reference to that, I just wanted to say, the following sheet of paper, well, that sheet of paper did not have the mayor's signature on it. But the following sheet after that had the mayor's signature on it, but did not have Mr. Bloom's signature on it.
It happens all the time, Francis.
So I just don't know what's legal. And I only saw one error that I felt was a typo. And in that situation, I guess someone had just written AY, and it should have been any, ANY. Small thing, but nevertheless, I just want you to know the time and effort that I had put through there. And it's just like the original maps that we saw today that showed the roads leading into the location of the 2 streets, including Summer Street. And we have a couple of people here tonight that live fairly close. But if a person is at the Capron Park entrance to the superintendent's office, and they just turn totally around the opposite direction,
No, it's not.
they're going to be facing one street, but all they need to do is drive toward North and Main Street, 1 block. That's called Summer Street. That Summer Street, within the 2nd block, puts a person right on the corner of Thomas and whatever.
Excuse me, point of order.
Yes?
I speak in opposition, and I just would like you to get to the point of what your opposition is. It doesn't matter where the street is and looking across and where the exit is coming out. Let's just get to the point.
What's the point,
Please.
Francis? Land the plane. What are you opposed to with this application? We know you're opposed in general, but specifically to this application, what is your opposition? Spelling errors
Well, one, I want to make sure that contract was correct.
It is.
You know, with the sheets of paper. But in addition to that, I'm asking that when Mr. Goya sold this property to the Major Bloom, and again, it said that they're unable to clean it up.
Point of order.
I want people to read about the edible.
Point of order.
Yes, Council Reynolds.
I think it was really clear to us and was spoken by the company that they are going to clean up the oil spill, and that was something that was very important to them. Thank you, that's all.
Yep, so I'm going to even take it one step further. I asked the remediation question, and the answer that I received was that they're going through the required 21E process, which is going to tell them exactly where the contamination is and any remediation that's necessary to provide and do the business that they want to do on that property. So Francis, the oil spill is being well vetted. In fact, you read the document. they have an agreement to buy the property, but they haven't bought it yet. And I would imagine, it doesn't say it in here, but I would imagine one of the sticking points of that agreement to buy that property is probably that they are able to do what they want to do there, or they're likely not going to buy the property. I can't speak for them, but if I was a betting man, I'd bet money on that. Furthermore, I want to tell you that the second page gives a detailed list in each tab, and what you recommend is tab 6, letter P, that I'll flip to, and I'll just briefly read to you.
Sure, go ahead.
The general liability, this is Major Bloom's policy, personal operating procedure, POP 1, effective date 11/12/2018, under letter B, number 2. The general liability insurance coverage will be equal to or greater than $1 million per occurrence and $2 million in aggregate annually. And it goes on to define those a bit further. So the plan for winding down company and liability insurance is right here.
I would like to end up for sure with saying that the testing and the labeling of the product, I would clearly like to see, rather than it being done by the people themselves, because I don't want it to go out to a company like it did in Boston years ago, and the results that came back were wrong. And if you recall this particular March issue of Nutrition Action, I would like to see that kind of an independent company come in and make not an appointment to come in, but to come in and make a spot check.
Thank you.
That's what I would ask you to consider to have added to that total contract. Because if they're on the up and up in every way, there should be no problem.
Any questions for Francis at this time?
No.
Mr. Balut, thank you.
And lastly, please look at and read the 3 pages of edible information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Is there, excuse me, is there anyone else here to speak in opposition?
Hi, I'm Brian McNeil. I live in the neighborhood, and I think opposition is a strong word, but this is my first time at one of these hearings for this. So hearing everything, great presentation, by the way.
Brian, I don't mean to interrupt you, but tell me your last name and your address. And your address?
I live on Tundro Avenue.
What is it?
12 Tundro.
12 Tundro.
Yep. My wife and I bought 3 years ago there and remodeled the whole house, so we're lifers here now. I don't know yet, but we want to be lifers. So after I heard everything, data must show them that the security system they need, why would they spend the money if research isn't showing them that there's a need? So I'm concerned about safety. All right, that would be 1. 2, I would like to know once it opens, sometimes it's harder to deal with things once a company is open than it is prior to them opening. So can I ask the what ifs? I live 1 street over. What if I can smell it? What if there's crime? What if my dog gets hit by the excess traffic in the area? What if my property value goes down? How do I deal with that later? Do I just move? Or how do we as a community deal with that later? If everything they're doing comes 100% true, fantastic. I'll never see any of it because I won't use the product. I won't go down that street. I won't smell it. I won't see the traffic, and I won't hear about the crime. But what if? What's my recourse?
So, do you want my answer, or do you want? We'll go to council.
It might be the same answer.
Okay, go ahead.
There's rules and regulations in place that if they don't follow them, they're shut down faster than you can sit back in your seat. So there are stringent regulations, not only in Attleboro, but in the Kansas, I can't even pronounce it, the Pot Commission in Boston. They have regulations that protect you to the utmost. They can't vary from their rules and regulations. This has been going on quite some time. I myself wasn't a proponent of this industry, and my fellow council will attest to that. But as far as the laws that are in place to protect people like you, the neighbors, and the people of Attleboro, they're real strict and they're real stringent. They'll shut these places down faster than you can blink if there's a problem. I have all the confidence in our local police department and Chief Hegney. He's been not only this particular application, but all of them. And you happen to live near an industrial zone where it's legal. That was tough on all of us to set that up. But I think we've all looked and been on your side of the podium. And if it means anything to you, my word, there's enough stuff enough rules and regulations and laws in effect that would shut it down that fast.
Okay. And how would I, if it happens, would I lodge a complaint? How do you get?
Yes. So let me help you. So right now, the municipal council is the granting authority for marijuana permits in the city, and you would file a complaint with us, and we would go through the process to investigate it, including contacting the applicant and saying, we're getting complaints from the neighborhood. There'd likely be a meeting to include whatever area is affected, and as quickly as we can give it, we can take it away. We go through a process like this. We have a public hearing to revoke the special permit, just like we're having tonight.
Okay.
It is there, and I don't.
No, I think there's been a lot of people sort of thinking that.
I'm a homeowner in the area.
No, I
My house
appreciate that.
is as important to me as their business is to them.
Absolutely.
So it's just a concern.
No, without a doubt.
Rightfully so.
Okay.
Oh, wait, sir, Vice President Parikh, do you have a question, Jay?
Well, and we do have experience with this. We've not necessarily with this particular business, but we had a business called New Stream in the city that caused a significant amount of difficulties with neighbors, myself included. And the city took the health department and the municipal council took swift action to make sure and took care of that problem very, very quickly. It is important, again, as I stated earlier, it's a question that I've asked because we don't have experience with cultivation centers and things like that because it's a brand new business for us here in the state of Massachusetts. It's something that we're incredibly cognizant of. And one of the things, and President Cooper did a very good job educating you on what the process is. That's what our job is usually as counselors, is to let our constituents know, okay, so you have a concern, this is the steps that we go through to take care of that. We would take your concerns incredibly seriously, as we have previously. I point at Mr. Delisio because it was something that we worked on together a few years back, and it was pretty severe, and we were swift, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Council Delisio and then Council Holmes.
Just to add, because these are all very valid concerns you bring up, but even before we get to that point of closing them down, we have to go through the diligence of seeing whether or not we're going to approve if we open them. And that goes through, to piggyback a little bit off what Councilor Blair was saying, it involves, several different city departments who, we're a lot more better versed at handling these situations now than we were even this time a year ago. When you look at the involvement of the planning department, the police chief, the fire chief will be involved at some point, I'm sure, as well. It's really, we're vetting all of those what-ifs because our role as a council is to protect the residents as well as the businesses. So, we want you to be a lifer. We don't want you to have done all this work to your house, say, peace out, Attleboro, right? We want you to stay here. And I think from what we heard from the company is I think they want you to stay here too. So, we've been down this road as Vice President Parikh said, to hear some of the things that I heard because about how they're using the carbon and fresh, bringing in the fresh air. I think it's similar kind of the casinos where they bring in that fresh oxygen as well. And there's a lot to get from here to where they even get to open the door.
Right.
So it is a process.
And because it's new, a new industry, right, and it's moving rapidly, there's really limited information for someone like me to go find, because I tried to do research, and there wasn't any clear evidence of any kind to either support or deny. It's like, it's a moving target right now, so all the what-ifs, they're real.
They're very real.
Because we're vetting it out, right? And so I just...
Well, thank you for coming down and airing it.
Council Holmes.
Yes, I have a question. Thank you. It is one of the challenges in Attleboro. We have a lot of pockets of industrial areas which are right across the street from residential. It's certainly a challenge. Do you think, though, that street has been looking like it needs a little bit more attention? And do you think that there could be a potential turnaround if they're going to be adding shrubs and things of that nature?
I think anything going into that space is going to clean up. It's really bad. And I walk my dog down there every day, right? And it's a terrible sight. And so their cleanup is going to be very much appreciated, right?
Yeah.
Would I rather see in a school or a condo complex? Or, I don't know. You know,
Be careful what you wish for.
Careful what you wish for, that's right.
but cleaning up the site, it's going to be, you know, and then right across the street you have that auto car place that, you know, I mean, that they're not going to do anything, so it's still going to have that industrial kind
But
of...
I've gotten some calls about that. I'm going to reach out to you.
You'd be surprised when one building or one area comes up, the surrounding areas tend to improve too.
Yeah.
You know, so I born and brought up on the east side, and you wouldn't have wanted to see that 30 years ago. And it's come a long way back. So
yeah, I do know that the road is just one straight, like a slight slope, and people fly down that road now. I mean,
well, you get a lot more police presence.
Just saying, you know, it's because I do walk the neighborhood, but.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council
Thank you for
Castillo,
coming
did you have a
out.
question?
I did.
Mr. McNeil, Jay has a question for you.
Sorry, and I was going to ask this earlier, and I was actually kind of surprised there was no conceptual drawing of what the building would look like with the vegetation and the in the outside of the building. Would that be something that would be helpful if you saw that? That's the only way I could ask the question.
No.
No?
Because anything they do to the location is going to be better than what it is right now.
Okay.
Even the work they've already done by digging around it and getting rid of all the sofas and the chairs and the tires, and I mean, that's already helped, right? So.
It would help me, so if we could get one, that'd be great.
Council Copas.
Less of a question, but more of an explanation. You had initially brought up some of the security and having all of these strict security rules and regulations and all that being a concern. As part of writing this ordinance, a lot of that is just an overabundance of concern because it is a new industry. And so that's where a lot of that comes from. But in talking to previous applicants, one of the questions we tend to ask is, if you had worked security setups for other dispensaries or cultivation centers, we asked if they had ever run into a security issue, and over, the answer was no. So I think the security measures in place here in Massachusetts have mitigated those risks, in my opinion. And yeah, so just figured I'd share that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Let them go.
Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition?
Can I just give you these pictures?
You can give them to Virginia after the meeting.
Because this includes the 10-mile river
Yeah.
right across the street.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Hearing none. Council Copas, I think we keep this public hearing open until we hear from we haven't heard from any of the department heads on this yet, have we? Or do you want to close it?
I'm okay with closing it. We'll still receive the report from the consolidated report from the planning department, so I'm comfortable closing this if you are.
So I'm not, because if we need any additional clarity, we'd have to call the applicant back before us, and we wouldn't be doing it publicly. So I think at this time we keep it open.
Good idea.
Unless any, Councilor Holmes?
When Councilor Dulcio asked for that, is it possible to also make requests of getting with the building?
I think she heard us
Okay.
loud and clear.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Great. So we will keep this public hearing open at this time, and we will continue until April 2nd. I'm not sure what the timeline is from the department heads, but in any case, we'll go till April 2nd and move it from there if we need to.
Sounds good.
All right? Okay. At this time, I'd entertain a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We're recessed till 8:59.
Peter. Come on, Peter.
Thank you. We'll call the council back to order at 9:03. And we will go on to the reading of the mayor's communication.
March 19th, 2019, dear municipal councilors. For your information, I regret to inform your honorable body we have received the resignation of Brian Simmons from the Historical Commission. Please join me in thanking Mr. Simmons for his service to the city. I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the following reappointments to positions and for terms as indicated. Henry Riley III, Board of Election Commissioners, term 3 years, expires February 2022. Randall Vincent, alternate inspector of wiring, 1 year, expires February 2020. Laban O'Brien, alternate inspector of wiring, 1 year, February 2020. Edward Perica Jr., alternate inspector of wiring, 1 year, February 2020. Steve Nunes, assistant inspector of gas piping and gas appliances, 3 years, expires February 2022. Madeline McNeely, council and aging director, 3 years, expires February 2022. Gary Orasian, director of planning and development, 2 years, February 2021. Nicholas Wiley, environmental planner, 2 years, February 2021. Scott LaChance, forest warden, 1 year, February 2020. Christopher Quinn, health officer, 1 year, February 2020. Kyle Hegney, lockup keeper, 1 year, February 2020. Catherine Rigo, parking administrator, 1 year, February 2020. And Derek Corsi, superintendent of parks and forestry, 3 years, expires February 2022.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Eleanor Parento, 1355 West Street, Attleboro, to fill an expired term on the Council on Substance Abuse Prevention. Term to expire February 2022. Copies in your packets.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Greg Withers, 22 Daggett Road, to fill an unexpired term on the Council on Substance Abuse Prevention. Term to expire February 2021. Copies in your packets.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from City Collector Deborah Macaccio regarding the donation of 3 monitors and 3 stands and 3 USB connectors with an estimated value of $575 from Bristol County Savings Bank. As the new lockbox company, Lighthouse is a different software service. The bank is providing the office with equipment to enable the office to work more efficiently. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Health Department Outreach Worker / Case Manager June Fleischman and Public Health Nurse Jacqueline Joyle O'Brien regarding the donation of $625 in Stop and Shop Market and Market Basket gift cards from the Holiday Spirit Committee. These cards will be offered by the Health Department's Public Health Nurse and Outreach Worker to individuals and families in need. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous gifts to the city. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Building Commissioner William McDonough regarding the need for funds to pay an alternative electrical inspector due to the retirement of the electrical inspector. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $6,000 from protective inspection salary to account protective inspection professional services. Copies in your packets.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Budget and Administration Barry Lacasse regarding the need for funds to cover a longevity payment that was inadvertently underfunded. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $200 from account Budget and Administration Maintenance of Software to account Budget and Administration Longevity. Copies in your packets.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Chief of Police Kyle P. Hegney regarding the need for funds to purchase tourniquets and a duty belt carrying cases for the officers. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $6,828.96 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Police Supplies. Upon approval, the available balance in the reserve fund for transfer will be $154,210.57. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety Emergency Management Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Fire Chief Scott T. LaChance regarding the receipt of an Emergency Management Performance Grant, or EMPG, from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, or MEMA, of approximately $13,760. These funds may be utilized for emergency management related activities and equipment procurement. The funds provided through this grant will be utilized towards procure of a 2019 or 2020 Ford F-350 four-wheel drive pickup truck with a 9-foot plow, emergency warning equipment, and other accessories. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to approve expending of such funds and any future grant amendments for this grant. Additionally, I hereby request your honorable body appropriate $31,275 from account undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account fire, vehicle, and equipment replacement. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety and Emergency Management, and I just want to make sure for Virginia, we call out each of these as separate votes. 2 separate votes, the first for the grant and the second for the additional $31,000 out of the 2 account numbers. Those should be 2 separate votes.
Okay. I respectfully submit a communication from Fire Chief Scott T. LaChance regarding the need for funds to purchase an NFPA 1851 compliant gear washer and drying cabinet for the Union Street Fire Station. A request to replace the existing gear washer at South Attleboro Fire Station will be sent to your honorable body in fiscal year 2020. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body appropriate $22,500 from account undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account fire industrial cleaner. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety Emergency Management Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Fire Chief LaChance regarding the need for funds for tuition reimbursement to firefighters for completing approved courses. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $15,000 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account fire tuition and books. Upon approval, the available balance in Reserve Fund for transfer will be $139,210.57. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety Emergency Management Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Planning and Development Director Gary Arazian. I hereby request your honorable body to hold a public hearing on April 2nd, 2019, relative to the administration's proposed program year 2019 Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Budget for the CDBG entitlement year, July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, the proposed program year 2019 annual action plan, and to request that the mayor, on behalf of the City of Attleboro, be authorized to submit to the Department of Housing and Urban Development the proposed CDBG budget and proposed activities to be undertaken during the upcoming CDBG entitlement year. Upon approval, Mr. Arazian will submit the Community Development Block Grant Budget to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development on or before May 15th, 2019. Copy in your packets.
Thank you. Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, and Mr. Chairman, that will require a public hearing.
I'd like to call for a public hearing on April 2nd.
Thank you, sir. We will, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing on 4-2.
For your information, I regret to inform your honorable body we've received the resignation of Tom O'Grady from the Council on Human Rights. Please join me in thanking Mr. O'Grady for his service to the city. I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Brian Hatch of 34 Silver Birch Road, Attleboro, to fill an unexpired term on the Conservation Commission. Term to expire February 2020. Copies in your packet.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding a vehicle that the fire department would like to declare surplus. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to declare the following vehicle as surplus and available for disposition. Copies in your packets. It is a 2005 Ford Crown Victoria. VIN is 2FAFP71W25X149087 with 157,000 miles on it, and it is in poor condition.
City Property and Claims, please.
Respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Schools David Sawyer regarding the following donations. Loan for the Coelho Butterfly Garden with a value of $126 from Megan and Scott Dominici and Leo and Laura Costinos. Physical education equipment with a total value of $756 from the West PTO. And an Insignia 55 class LED 2160p smart 4K UHD TV with HDR Fire TV edition with a value of $329.99 for Willet's music classroom from the Willett Elementary School PTO. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
As you may recall, on March 6, 2018, your honorable body voted to approve a loan authorization for the new high school. The loan authorization stated that the amount of the borrowing would be reduced by the net proceeds, if any, received prior to the issuance of any long-term bonds for the project from the sale of the following city school buildings: Old High School, 135 County Street; Finberg School, 1125 South Main Street; and Briggs Corner School, 908 Oak Hill Avenue. On March 11th, 2019, the school committee voted that the property located at 135 County Street and the associated parking lot at 0 Cora Street were no longer needed for school purposes and may be transferred to the city. Pursuant to Chapter 2-11.2, Disposition of Real Property, a communication was sent to department heads, and there was no interest in this property. The Old High School and 0 Cora Street are currently assessed at $6,303,900 and $125,600 respectively. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to hold a public hearing in accordance with Section 2-11.2 of the city ordinances to declare that the Old High School, 135 County Street, and the parking lot at 0 Cora Street be available for disposition. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. City Property and Claims Committee, please. And Council Reynolds, would you like to call for a public hearing on April 2nd?
That's fine.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Wastewater Thomas Hayes regarding the need to purchase parts and materials to repair the mechanical bar screen at the wastewater treatment plant. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $30,000 from account Wastewater Enterprise Fund to account Wastewater Enterprise Fund Supplies, Equipment, Maintenance. Copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Andrew Acosta of 30 Falcon Drive, Attleboro, to fill an expired term on the Municipal Building Commission. Term to expire February 2022. Copies in your packets.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Veterans Services Ken Badicher regarding the donation of $75 in Stop and Shop gift cards from the Attleboro Elks Lodge number 1014. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Planning and Development, Gary Arazian, regarding the EPA's NPDES 2 General Permit, also known as MS4. The staff is working with the engineering consultant to update the city's local stormwater management ordinance, as well as stormwater regulations for the Planning Board and Conservation Commission for compliance with the current NPDES 2 General Permit. There are several requirements that either need to be completed by July 1st, 2019, or need progress in the next 16 months to achieve compliance with deadlines outlined in the NPDES 2 General Permit. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to appropriate $33,240 from account undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account citywide professional services. Copies in your packets.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
Sincerely, Paul Haru, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go on to other communications.
Yes, we have a few today. The first one is a correspondence dated March 12, 2019 from Attorney Steve Andrioni of Attleboro addressing City Ordinance 10-5 parking and the possibility of change as it pertains to Angeline Street.
Transportation and Traffic Committee, please.
We received correspondence dated March 15, 2019 from the Traffic Study Commission with a statement about their Beagle Club Road recommendation.
Traffic and Transportation Committee, please.
We received an application dated March 19, 2019 for Hawkers and Peddlers license from Adam Pelagi of Pelagi Brothers Ice Cream, LLC of Benefit Street in Pawtucket.
License Committee, please.
We received an application dated March 19, 2019 from Robert Pelagi of Pelagi Brothers Ice Cream, LLC of Delta Drive, Pawtucket for a Hawkers and Peddlers license.
License Committee, please.
And we also received an application for a Ring-a-Bell to sell products dated March 19, 2019 from Robert Pelagi of Pelagi Brothers Ice Cream, LLC of Delta Drive, Pawtucket.
License Committee, please.
And that is all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into Committee of the Whole.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. We are now at Committee of the Whole. Is there anyone here who would like to address the council at this time on any issue of city business? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to arise.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. We are moving right along to committee reports, and we'll begin to my left with Councilor Jackson.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Reporting for Public Works Committee from the docket of March March 19th, 2019. I move to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $1,213,763 and any other future grant amendments into Fund 3108, Chapter 90 projects for the purpose of funding Chapter 90 eligible projects as approved by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, Mass DOT, and to allow the Public Works Department to expend fund and any other future grant amendments.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Council Jackson.
I have no further.
Any other questions or comments? Council Cope? Sure.
And I hate, through the president, I hate to put you on the spot, but just out of curiosity, is this more or less than what we received last year?
It's about the same.
Okay.
Yep, it all falls in line. Yeah, it's been falling in line the last few years. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Council Jackson.
Ms.
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of March 19th, 2019, I move to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $8,870 from account undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account Public Works Supplies Equipment account regarding the needs for funds to purchase 2 walk-behind sidewalk sweepers.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
Thank you. Nope, we discussed this last week.
Great. Again, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of March 19th, 2019, I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $5,000 from the citywide reserve fund for transfer account to the park and forestry overtime account regarding the need for additional funds for overtime for the remainder of fiscal year 2019.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Questions or comments?
I have, we discussed this last week as well.
So we will have a roll call vote. We'll begin with Council Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no further business this evening, but I would like to call for a committee meeting at the appropriate time next week.
Thank you. Council Waterman.
Yes, reporting from the Personnel and Human Services Committee from the docket of March 19th, 2019. I move to confirm the appointment of Frank Cook, 32 Division Street, to fill an unexpired term on the Council on Aging Board of Directors, term to expire February 2023.
Second.
Ooh, that was a tie. Any questions or comments?
Just that Frank is very happy with this.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? No? Voice vote is required. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
I move to amend vote number 12 from the meeting of November 6, 2018 by deleting a portion of the vote, and I quote, for 15 hours a month through the end of the fiscal year as opposed to the 5 hours a month, end of quote, and replacing it with, quote, as needed.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order.
I explained that last week, I believe.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
There's no further business with Personnel and Human Services Committee. We'll meet next at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for the Committee on Capital Improvement and City Development from the docket of March 19th, 2019. I move to rescind vote number 1 for the meeting of March 5th, 2019, and hold a public hearing was called for March 19, 2019 to review the capital improvement plan for 2020-2024.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any questions or comments, Council Conti?
No plan, no public hearing. End of my comments.
Plain and simple. Thank you. This requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Council Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
That concludes the business the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee has to bring before the council. We look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Council Cobus.
Zoning and Land Use doesn't have any business tonight. We call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Vice President Parika.
With that, Transportation and Traffic has no business this evening and call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Great.
Thanks, President Cooper. Reporting for budget and appropriations from the docket of March 19th, 2019. I move to approve the request of the mayor to authorize the school department to pay fiscal year 2018 year school bills totaling $228.92 as identified in Mr. Furtado's communication from the meeting of March 5th.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
We discussed this about 2 hours ago.
Great. This requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of March 19th, 2019, I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $209.54 from citywide reserve fund for transfer to account clerk overtime regarding the need for funds to pay a water department employee to work during the rabies clinic at the water department.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order.
I just want to thank Mr. Withers for coming down to speak in front of the committee earlier, just to describe why we're doing this. It's so the rabies clinic can be held at the water department. It's a clerk function, so the clerk is paying the water employee who's got to be there to open up, clean shop, the whole thing. So thank you, Mr. Withers.
Oh, my pleasure.
Any other questions or comments? A roll call vote is required, and are we... Kate?
Yep.
With Council Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika? Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of March 19th, 2019, I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $281.57 from account citywide reserve fund for transfer to account veterans vehicle maintenance regarding the need for funds to replace 2 tires on the veterans van.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order.
I would like to thank Ken Badisher, veterans agent, for coming down for this motion and the next motion. This is just to replace 2 tires on the veterans van, which, again, it just shows when the city departments are working together. The DPW tried to patch it up the best they could, but sometimes the tire just got to go. So,
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. From the docket of March 19th, 2019, I move to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $6,000 from account undesignated fund free cash general government to account continuing appropriation veterans patriotic events regarding the need for funds to bring the Vietnam veterans moving wall to Attleboro.
Second.
Thank you. Any motions in order? Any questions or comments?
I don't know that there's ever been a motion I've been more passionately behind than this one.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of March 19th, 2019, I move to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $24,310 from account undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account recreation demolition services regarding the need for funds to demolish the William H. Liddell Memorial Pool and Bathhouse.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
We talked about this earlier tonight at committee. It's not something we want to do. Unfortunately, it's something we have to do at this point. And I appreciate the discussion that was held around this from the council, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. And finally, from the docket of March 19th, 2019, I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $228 from account citywide reserve fund for transfer to account planning overtime regarding the need for additional funds for overtime for the remainder of fiscal 2019.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
We did discuss this earlier, but just a quick recap. This is for the folks from the planning department who have to stay late, whether it's Board of Appeals or Planning Board. So it's just to get them through the next 3 months through the fiscal year.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, this requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Councilor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
That is all the business for budget and appropriations. Would like to call for a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you.
Reporting for License Committee, I have one motion this evening from the docket of March 19th, 2019. I entertain a motion to approve the application for a hawkers and peddler's license for Renee Lum of 62 Sycamore Avenue, Attleboro, to sell food, beverages, and novelty.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
No comments. We spoke about this in committee.
Great. This requires a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
That's all the business I have for License Committee, and like to call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time, please.
Great. Thank you. Council Reynolds.
Thank you, President Cooper. Reporting for City Property and Claims Committee from the docket of March 19th, 2019. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the donation of $100 in Market Basket gift cards from Leuna Local 1144 to the Veterans Department.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory and as usual, and we're just really very thankful for all of the donations that we received here in the city.
Thank you. Voice vote. Any other questions? Voice vote is required. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
And that is all the business City Property and Claims Committee has this evening. I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Excellent. Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. Ordinance, Election, and Legislative Matters has no business this evening, and we'll call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Blair.
Reporting for Public Safety and Emergency Management, I have two motions this evening. Excuse me. Entertain a motion to approve the request of mayor in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro to allow the police department to expend approximately $7,948 in any future grant amendment via the FY 2019 Pedestrian Bicycle Safety Enforcement Grant, sponsored by the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security Highway Safety Division.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any questions or comments?
We talked about this in committee last week. It's another grant that we're very, very thankful that we get. It helps tremendously, not only with the city budget, but with the protection of our pedestrians out there.
Yep. Any other questions or comments? A roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of March 19, 2019, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro to allow the fire department to expend approximately $50,000 and any future further grant amendment. The funding shall be utilized in accordance with legislation earmarked as a health and wellness initiative for the Attleboro Fire Department.
Second?
This particular grant, we all set? This particular grant also, if there's any money left over after helping our firemen and their health and welfare, the money is to be spent on education for our elderly and our students on fire prevention and whatnot.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote, and we'll begin with Councilor Jackson.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Kobus?
Yes.
Vice President Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Delicia?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
I have no other business this evening, but would request a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Perfect, thank you. There is no old business, there is no new business. However, before we adjourn, I just want to let you all know that I'll be out of town from the 4th to the April 10th to the 21st for the annual Florida trip, and Heather will be the acting president during that time. You'll all get the formal notice, but I wanted you to be aware.
Mr. President, is it your desire for the Committee on Special Rules and Procedures to be in hiatus until May?
May, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned, 9:35.
Right, so you